Good evening, everyone. This is the December 15th meeting of the Harbor Management Commission. I'm Kim Taylor, the chair. In this COVID era, unfortunately, we can take no public comment during the meeting. However, we request that if you have comments, that you send them to the Harbor Management Commission the email address is hmc@fairfieldct.org with the HMC 12/15/2020 meeting in the subject line. So that takes care of that. Let me call the roll, and we'll see who among the commissioners are here. Mark Foster, Harry French.
Kim, I might have been muted. Mark's present.
Oh, good, Mark. Okay. Ted, I heard your voice earlier.
Present.
Jack Hirschler.
Present.
Sam Cargill.
Present.
Eric Sunman.
Here.
Libby Hirschler. Doug Metchik.
Here.
Ed Billings, Harbor Master.
Present.
Jeff Stedman.
Here. Present.
And Betty Gabriel.
I'm here, Kim.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you all. The first item on our agenda this evening is approval of the minutes. And Betty has been working tirelessly to manage all the documents. And at this point, I think that we are not ready to present them to the commissioners for approval. So that will happen at our next meeting. That's correct, Betty, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So moving along to the chairman's report, we had a November 23 email from Deep transmitting a license for a residential dock on Pine Creek, which is out of our jurisdiction, but for which we received notice nonetheless. On November 25th, I emailed James Baldwin, the town attorney, informing him of the Robinson and Cole letter the first Robinson and Cole letter, which we received on November 17th. On December 1st and December 4th, I exchanged emails with Chris Smith, Pequot Yacht Club Commodore, about suggested changes to the proposed rules and procedures. On December 8th, we received an email from Gaylord Meyer about a mooring permit. He's a resident on the waterfront in Southport with a dock and a mooring. His dock is unusual as a float side. And then on December 5th, we received a notice from Deep. As you recall, I guess it was several months ago now that the Aquarian Water Company applied to Deep to divert, I guess, several million gallons of water from the reservoir, the Hemlock Reservoir, and potentially the Mill River. And so we were notified. We sent in a response. There was a public hearing of sorts, as much as that is possible in the COVID era, and now they are sending out this notice of tentative determination to approve that application, and they've also noticed that there will be an opportunity to get questions answered, and that more information about that is on the Deep website. And finally, on December 11th, we received an email from John Casey of Robinson & Cole, who represents Mr. Owens at 789 Harbor Road. So that is my report. Some of these items will be taking up, particularly the December 11th letter, I believe, in the Harbor Master's report. So with that said, are there any questions about any of this before I turn it over to the Harbor Master? Okay. Ed Billings, Harbor Master report.
Sorry for my delay. I had to take care of something,
Okay.
and I muted. Let's see. Currently, we have 67 people on the wait list. All boats are out of the harbor. With regard to the December 11th email from John Casey representing Mr. Owens, really haven't changed my thinking for that. I have recommended a number of times for him to get on the wait list, but so far they have not complied with that. I've thought a lot about it, but my original thinking on it from earlier this year and last year is still the same. There's been a lot of discussions between myself and Mr. Engborg at Pequot Yacht Club regarding the potential for the new North Anchorage. And other than that, I'll keep my remarks brief tonight for future consideration and communication on the rest of the meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Ed. Any questions for the Harbor Master? I would just note for the record that in 2019, Mr. Owens requested a mooring permit, and Mr. Schuler, the former harbor master, responded to that request by suggesting that Mr. Owens put his name on the waiting list. So it appears that Mr. Owens has not had his name on the waiting list in the past, and as we all know, according to our rules, that is the very first step that everybody, littoral rights owners, littoral rights folks, as well as the rest of the people who are not living on the water, that's the first step that anyone must take in order to get a mooring in Southport Harbor. So there is a history here, and hopefully he will take the harbor master's suggestion and put his name on the waiting list, so we can begin to process his request. So with that said,
thank you for that clarification, Kim. Yes, I am aware of Mr. Schuler's emails and letters as well.
Okay, good. Sometimes it's hard to keep track of that if it happened before you came on board, but there's definitely a history here. So, and I think it's pretty well documented. So we do have that. Any questions from the commissioners of the Harbor Master? Lower Wharf Project, Mr. Stedman.
Well, nothing to report. Mr. Sternberg from Race submitted the formal request to the Corps of Engineers to review the sediment data, and we've not heard back, but we certainly need to start thinking about how to proceed next year, because we're going to need to apply for a new permit. We can't renew the permit anymore, and so that's a budget matter as well. I mean, there is money in the various accounts, but so right now there's nothing to report, and still, as I understand, there's no cap material for other dredging projects to be. Well, anyway, we couldn't do our project anyway, but we're not the only group that couldn't do a project that required cap. So I'm assuming as soon as I'll check with Steve Sternberg again tomorrow, but I'm assuming as soon as he hears from the Corps of Engineers about what it's called a suitability determination. So okay. They will confirm that the material suitable for disposal in the Central Long Island Sound site with TAP. I'm assuming, and that's necessary for our new permit application.
Okay, so that's the first.
Nothing good to report on that.
Okay, until that's done, we really can't move ahead.
No, except to think and plan for whatever expenses may be necessary for the new permit application.
Okay. Okay, so we have to keep that in mind. Okay, commissioners, questions? Okay, moving along to sand management. Mr. Foster, Mr. Stedman?
Cheers, Jeff.
Well, Mark, nothing's happened there either. Our anticipation was that the Corps of Engineers would visit Southport before the end of the year to discuss with us and DEEP the draft. That's the draft dredging plan. However, with the COVID restrictions, that's not possible because going back to Massachusetts, they'd have to quarantine when they go back. So, because of the quarantine requirements, we're not going to be able to have an in-person meeting before the end of the year. So we'll have to rethink then how to distribute this draft plan. But Mark and I will continue to discuss this with the Corps. But again, nothing real positive to report about that either, other than I think that they've completed the draft plan. But we'll check on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions on sand management? Okay, Ted, 2021 budget request?
Thank you, Kim. This is really an informational item. Kim and I wanted the commissioners to be aware that we have submitted our 2021 budget request to the town, along with the budget message that goes along with that budget request. And this was all included in the packet that was distributed to commissioners for today's meeting. Given that the budget request is really the same budget that we had for this fiscal year, and that we've reviewed the last two meetings, I didn't plan on going through that in any detail unless any of the commissioners have any questions. But I would suggest that you do take a look at that at your leisure at some point. And again, just to refresh everyone's memory, our budget request for this year is $23,162, exactly the same number as last year. And like last year, it's made up of primarily a budget for professional fees and services, along with communications and secretarial fees, as well as costs related to the harbor master and his communication needs. The other thing I'd suggest that commissioners do when you get a chance is take a read through the budget message, because that does give some background on the Harbor Management Commission. It also talks about our budget summary that our request is a 0% increase and what our priorities are for this coming fiscal year. And it also outlines what the different balances are in the various accounts that the Harbor Management Commission oversees. And Kim, unless there are any questions, those are really the comments that I had.
Good. Thank you, Ted. Questions, commissioners, of Ted? And a request to the town for money for next year? Okay, excellent. Thanks, Ted, very much.
You're welcome, Kim.
Okay, moving right along. We have next on our agenda is Mooring Committee. Jack?
Yeah, Kim, let me report that the Mooring Committee met on November 19th, and let me just cover just a few of the items that were highlights for the commissioners. The Harbor Master has reported that he met with Jeff Engborg to discuss the use of the online mooring system for mooring tackle inspection, maintenance, record, data entry, and the Harbor Master reported that he and Mr. Engborg have plans in place for entering the tackle inspection and maintenance records into the system in the coming months as the wall mooring inspections are being performed. So good progress on that front. The committee discussed and is recommending that the Commission invite Mr. Engborg to speak to the Commission at the January meeting to educate us just about the foundation of how mooring tackle works, since we're responsible, the town owns the tackle, and it's an important budget item for the Commission. So we were thinking of asking him to address just what are the parts of mooring tackle that are used in Southport Harbor, how and when during the year does his team perform the zone inspections for maintenance of the mooring tackle, and maybe most importantly, as commissioners with the budget responsibility, how should we think about the range of expenses that we might experience for replacement of tackle as it ages, as he performs each of these annual inspections in each of the zones for our mooring tackle. So look forward to having him speak to us in our upcoming January meeting. The committee discussed specifications for a recommendation to the full Harbor Management Commission for a purchased Harbor Master Patrol vessel. We were taking guidance we got from the full Commission, zeroing in on a 17 to 19-foot Boston Whaler Montauk model with the center console boat. We were thinking about one with a trailer and a VHF radio, which is a basic boat to be used by the Harbor Master for patrol. And we are aiming towards, for the January meeting, to have the Harbor Master bring to the commissioners 3 boats currently for sale that would be the kinds of boats that could be candidates for being a patrol vessel for the Harbor Master, to give a sense of the kind of used boat that we could potentially be able to buy in this market for the kind of price range that we had talked about previously. We also talked about being ready for the renewals in the beginning of January for the mooring permits and the waiting list petitions, and the Harbor Master advised us he's thinking of continuing to require decals in 2021 for vessels that are moored, and thinking with the possibility that the North Anchorage master permit to Pequot Yacht Club could be in place at the beginning of January, that he would, if the Commission passes that new rule, that he would consider a different colored decal and just print North Anchorage on those decals, since the assignment to particular mooring locations is really up to Pequot Yacht Club and can change over the course of the season for particular vessels. Let's see. The Harbor Master also indicated he was going to talk to online mooring staff about preparations for the possibility of the switch to the North Anchorage master permit as it relates to the online mooring system. And I'm aware, following that meeting, that the Harbor Master has had some conversations with online mooring to be ready in the event that the Commission does pass the new rules with the Master North Anchorage permit. Those are the highlights of the meeting, which was on November 19th, 2020. That's my report.
Super. Thank you, Jack. Any questions, Commissioners? Questions about the Mooring Committee meeting of the 19th? Super. Okay. Well, then, moving right along, it's my turn, the Harbor Management Plan update. One of the attachments to the agenda today was the Southport Harbor Questionnaire, and it is the questionnaire that the Plan Update Committee has been working on. The hope is, if it meets with Commissioner's approval, that we will submit this to make it available, I suppose is a better term, to folks in the hopes of gaining some information about who uses the harbor and what what folks' our awareness is of the four major components of our update, which are updating the plan, which will include our sand management, the dredging of the harbor entrance, and the lower wharf project, as well as updating the mooring rules and procedures. And so we're just hoping to gain some information about who's in the harbor, as well as I just said, informing folks that those are our major initiatives, and those would be the major components of the update to the plan. The format that you see that Betty embedded in the agenda is obviously not what it would look like in SurveyMonkey, but it's kind of the best way that we had to present it to you. And the committee, the last question, what does Southport Harbor mean to you? The committee is very fond of that question, but because of the way the results would be tabulated, at this point, we're pretty much thinking that unfortunately it's not a good way. Asking the question in SurveyMonkey is not a good way to get those answers. So that question would probably not appear. The thinking is that we would make it available in mid-January, so as not to conflict with the mooring permit renewal process. We would make it available through the town website, announce it. Hopefully, ask for Selectwoman if she could put it in her email update. A number of organizations in Southport, community sailing, in the process of contacting the folks who are leaders in those organizations to see if we can publicize this survey through to their membership. So the hope is that it would be available for a couple of weeks, and then we would be in a position to take a look at the answers. So, anybody have any questions or concerns about this? Any thoughts? Great. And if there are no...
Kim, it's Jack. I'd just like to recognize Jeff for the hard work he's done, multiple drafts of this with feedback from folks on that committee, and appreciate the work that took us to get to this place with a number of revisions and changes through the iteration.
Absolutely. Jeff is, I don't know what we would do without Jeff when it comes to drafting any of the things that we have to draft. But yes, Jeff, this is terrific.
Yeah, so you could probably get someone else to do it a lot faster. Just like go over.
It's not like there was nothing going on, Jeff.
Yeah, the good news is it's not bad, but the bad news is that it took you like 3 weeks to do. Right?
But it looks good.
Thank you.
It looks good. It looks good. So, Commissioners, I think this would probably go out. We will notify, the committee would notify you, obviously, ahead of time, and I think it would be certainly no more than 10 questions. That last question, unfortunately, we have to think of another way to get that information that would be more useful to all of us. So that's what the Plan Update Committee is up to. Okay, any questions? So I guess now we're on to the proposed changes to the rules and procedures, which I have to say that, again, where would we be without Jeff, who spent, I think, probably the better part of the weekend working very hard to get this document in the wonderful shape that it's in, and then Betty, who was available who was at standby the whole weekend, and if Jeff got done with it in time, Betty was available to get it out to all of you. So I just doing a project like this in COVID. With the COVID restrictions is very difficult, but Jeff and Betty have really been the glue that have held us all together and have made it possible for us even to be this far along in the process. So thank you both very much. You've done a magnificent job. So with
thank you for
ado,
saying
Jack,
that. You don't need to.
Well, I know I don't have to, but it's certainly true, and we all need to acknowledge your hard work, because it has been it has truly kept us together and kept us on track, and at some significant cost in terms of personal time.
Rosie, Scotty, come on, hurry up.
To both Jeff and Betty. So
on,
we're really enormously grateful.
Come on, hurry up.
Jack, proposed changes to rules and procedures.
Right. Let me it's hard to do something this complicated. We've been trying to do document review for months now by telephone. For tonight, you've got 3 separate documents that all fit together. So we're going to be talking about the town code, the harbor management rules and procedures, which we've been talking about, and also at the public hearing, we shared the 2021 permit fees and mooring tackle maintenance charge table, and that goes together with the updated rules and procedures. It details the specific fees and charges for the coming year under the rules and procedures. And then the third item that was in the pack that Betty sent to us are some town code changes that, if the rules are approved, we would want to approve as a commission to move on to the process of approval through the RTM. My understanding, and we've got commissioners who've done this before, but who can speak to this, but there's an L&A committee of the RTM which would have the first review. We'd probably present and explain these changes there first, and then it goes before 2 successive RTM meetings, and then it would be voted to be implemented as amended code language for the Fairfield Town Code. So understand that these 3 things are going to be talked about in sequence next. So with that, Jeff, you've made the changes that we talked about in our conversation following the public hearing, and those changes really revolved around the insertion of the mooring float permits that we had forgotten to include previously. So, Jeff, can you walk us through the changes that you made over the weekend, reflecting the feedback from the public hearing?
Okay, and maybe Kim shouldn't have complimented me, because I don't know, the commissioners may not feel that these are that, but anyway, we certainly trying. So all the changes that I made are highlighted in yellow, or changes I suggested, except right on the first page. We had a discussion after the meeting, and we wanted to clarify that a mooring committee is a committee of the HMC. It's not an autonomous body. I mean, we had discussed that, and I think it goes without saying when it's a committee of the larger organization, you know, under Robert's rules and parliamentary procedure, the committee functions at the direction of the commission and is able to conduct work of the commission outside of the meetings and then report at the meetings. But so we just wanted to clarify that it's a committee of the Harbor Management Commission, and that's specified in the Harbor Management Plan too. But all the rest of the yellow highlighted sections was my effort to try to make clear and incorporate the permitting of the mooring floats. And you know, the reason that we're doing this, main reason, same with the North Anchorage permit, is that the state statute requires in any harbor that one cannot moor a boat in any harbor without a permit from the harbor master. So even though the yacht club has its state and federal permits for the North Anchorage and for the commercial mooring floats, they still, to comply with the statutes, we have to provide for the harbor master's permitting of these moorings as well. So one of the things that we did is we added a definition of what a mooring float is, and we took that from the state definition, regulatory definition of a mooring, and then we were proposing to also, this fits in with what Jack mentioned, the proposed amendments to the town code, that we also included definition of a mooring float, since that would also be subject to a permit fee, and we included in the proposed amendments to the town code the definition of the North Anchorage as well, as we've included in these rules and procedures. So we're referring this again to an annual mooring float, commercial mooring float permit, because remember we're distinguishing now in the harbor mooring permits that are individual private mooring permits and commercial mooring permits that meet the definition of the federal government and the Corps of Engineers and the DEEP. So the commercial mooring, the mooring floats meet that definition as well, because they're for the exclusive use of the yacht club. So it's very similar to what we were talking about with the North Anchorage, I think, is that a separate permit would be issued by the harbor master for each of the mooring floats, and then as we go through these rules and procedures, we have to make clear that the information on the mooring floats, just as they were before, those would be inputted into the online mooring system. And I don't know if anyone has any other questions, but it doesn't look like a whole lot of changes, or it would require a lot. Just going through and seeing what sections needed to be modified so that we incorporate the permitting for the mooring floats.
Hey Jeff, it's Jack. Just one clarification for everybody. The maintaining records for the mooring floats and applying for mooring float permits within the online mooring system, that's already in place. So that's not new. Yeah. That's just continuation of what's been in place. And before online mooring, those permits were issued for mooring floats, not through the online mooring system, but in.
I meant to say that. So that is.
So really, we've introduced the language in our rule, but the permitting of the mooring floats is old news.
Because we had to include a reference in the rule, because we clarify what requires input into the online system in terms of information, and what's kept differently, and what's kept differently is the information on the boats in the North Anchorage, which is not the individual boat owners and the specifications of the boat. So those are not input into the online system. Those are handled through the different procedure as we've mentioned here. So that was this highlighted material was presented for the commissioners to see if it makes sense. But we're trying to be, the committee is trying to be comprehensive and trying to make sure everything is sort of like opening one door and another door close. As you look at one section of these things. But I think it's okay. But up to everybody else, up to the commission.
Yeah, Jeff, I've looked at it pretty carefully, and I've read it through the whole document word for word, and I think you caught all the places where references to the mooring floats needed to be added.
Right. And remember last meeting there was discussion about how this addresses littoral property owners' applications for moorings in the North Anchorage, but as a result of last meeting, all that we did since then was to include changes based on, to reflect the mooring floats, not any of the other stuff that we talked about last meeting. So that's all the same. The other stuff is. So
great job, Jeff. Thank you. And commissioners, questions for Jeff about this particular draft, or why don't we focus on that first? If there's any questions about the additions to this draft that are related to the mooring floats.
Kim, am I muted, or do you hear me?
I hear you.
Oh, terrific. So Jeff, down the footer, why is the floating dock only secured by bottom anchors?
The footnote defining a mooring float?
It's on page 2, footnote 6.
I took that definition out of the state definition of a mooring, which includes, the moorings as we typically think of them, and then it also had a definition of a single floating dock unattached to land. That's unattached to land and secured by. Well, I'll go back and check that. The other part of the state definition was not to exceed 100 square feet. But I think that the mooring floats that have been permitted through the DEP permit are more than 100 feet. But I tried to take that from the state definition, Mark. I'll go back and look at it. But your question is there a way other than bottom anchors to secure them? Is that what you were?
Well, I'm just checking to be sure of my understanding that a mooring float can only be secured by bottom anchors and not anchor piles.
Well, we're making our own definition in a way here, although I took it from the state definition, and I didn't think we wanted to get into something that would be secured by pilings, since there's a mooring maintenance charge associated with all of these. I didn't think there was another way that we would want to allow them to be secured, unless you think that there is more.
No, I'm not going in the direction of suggesting that there's any issue. I'm just checking to be sure that we mean what we say here, and there's a reason for it. Sounds like there is.
If that's what, yeah. So even though I borrowed from the state definition, we're setting our own definition of what would constitute a mooring float in Southport Harbor. And while you're talking, I'll look at the state definition, or while we're discussing this, I'll look at the state definition.
Just to be clear, for the mooring floats that are in Southport Harbor permitted to Pequot, they're all anchored by these anchors, bottom anchors. I believe they also have cables to shore, in if not all cases, in most cases. So, but the definition is definitely true that they're secured by bottom anchors with respect to the ones in our harbor. But I take Mark's point.
To Mark's point, the state definition does allow secured by no more than 2 pilings or stakes, and I didn't think we wanted to get into that, since we're essentially defining the mooring floats that the yacht club has and maintains. I didn't think we were trying to get into opening up the possibility that others might apply for these. But anyway, but you're right, Mark. The state definition allows for no more than 2 pilings or stakes to also secure them. But I don't think we want that, because that's not the case of these that we're talking about.
Mark?
No, thanks, Jeff, for your response.
Mark, are you okay with this?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Okay, good. Other questions about the changes, the recent changes that Jeff has done, reflecting mooring floats, including mooring floats and the rules?
This is Doug. Can you hear me?
Yes, Doug.
Jeff, first of all, thank you. In reviewing this document, I could see you put considerable time and thought into it. So thank you for that. I have two questions. They're not specific to mooring floats, but they're specific to the language in yellow that you put in right in the, I'm going to call it the opening paragraph, but it's paragraph 2. The first is actually a change that's not in there, but it occurs to me you may want to have in there, having spent a little more time with this document. There's a line in paragraph 2A. It's the fourth line down. It reads, the mooring committee shall assist the harbor master with matters pertaining to the mooring, anchoring, and docking of vessels in the HMA.
Yes.
It occurs to me that these rules also have a lot to do with the permitting of moorings, and I wonder if we should include the word permitting there in that sentence before mooring.
Mm-hmm.
So my suggested change there is the committee shall assist the harbor master with matters pertaining to the permitting, mooring, anchoring, and docketing of vessels in the HMA.
Might there be other matters concerned? I don't. That's certainly true, but might there be other matters pertaining to mooring that, in addition to permitting, that might require some sort of a decision or anchoring, or decision or decision or discussion? Such as the relocation. Well, it's all related to permitting. But in an emergency, for example, we discussed of the COVID earlier this year about perhaps limiting access to moorings. So, is it with matters pertaining? It's maybe I agree that permitting could be emphasized, but there might be other, we don't want to make that the only matter because there might be some others that would require discussion.
So perhaps maybe we say including but not limited to. My only thought is that a good portion of the document has to do with mooring permits and language around that, and I realize that it was an omission in terms of some of the committees. So it's a simple suggestion there, not that I feel super strongly about it.
But it probably does work with matters pertaining to the permitting of mooring, anchoring, and with other matters concerning safe and efficient operation of the HMA. So maybe the other matters would get into anything else having to do, in addition to permitting.
Yeah. So either of permitting or permitting, but it may be worth reviewing that language.
With matters pertaining to the permitting of mooring. Well,
I'm thinking permitting, mooring, anchoring. To just add it to the list.
Yeah. Yes. Mooring, anchoring, docking, and permitting of vessels in the I see.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Sorry, I hadn't picked that one up sooner. While I'm off mute related, in your first paragraph there in yellow, reading the mooring committee shall report regularly to the HMC, I think that's an excellent addition. It caused me to think a little bit about the committee itself and what the authority the committee has as it relates to the HMC. And a thought that I have, it's actually two thoughts that are related. One of them is to maybe, committees can be funny in terms of where their authority lies or does not lie. And it seems to me that we could clarify what the authority is. In other words, I don't think the mooring committee has any voting authority. It's really to help pay attention to and focus on and expedite things related to helping the HMC and the harbor master with these things in the HMA. So maybe some language that speaks to the authority of the committee. And then I also wonder whether this paragraph should be a footnote as the way we have for the purposes of these rules. The footnote might be, for the purpose of these rules and procedures, the mooring committee reports to the HMC, otherwise assists the HMC, and is not a voting entity or does not have voting authority, something like that. Just for clarification.
Mm-hmm. So the new thought, that last part in yellow of 2A, suggesting to put that into a footnote, but the new thought to be added would be that you're suggesting that the committee does not have voting authority.
Well, yes, I guess what I'm saying. So I serve on a few boards, and on those boards I serve on some subcommittees. Some of those subcommittees actually have decision-making authority, and some of them don't. And committees can be funny in terms of, what the understanding is for them. And so it occurs to me that we might just apply a definition of what the decision-making authority is or isn't of the committee, for clarity's sake.
Yeah. Now, I don't mean to keep talking. I know it can't see each other, but I looked at Robert's rules and some other references when this topic was brought up, and that under Robert's rules that a committee of the organization, they call it, has the functions that you mentioned to do things efficiently and to do business related to the function of the organization outside of the normal meetings, but still must report back, and the ultimate decision rests with the main organization. So I was almost thinking that by saying a mooring committee of the HMC, that almost I thought at first might be sufficient to make that point. That and perhaps the committee could vote, but the vote would simply be to recommend something to the ultimate authority rests with the commission. And in the harbor management plan, it talks, when talking about setting up the committee, it makes clear that the harbor commission has the responsibility of managing the harbor. So that the decisions, and I know there are other harbor commission committees that vote as a result of the committee meeting or decision to make the specific recommendation to the commission. So I however you wish to handle this.
Well, so here's a thought on that. So maybe we just use make recommendation as it. So the mooring committee shall report regularly to the HMC, make recommendations to the HMC, and otherwise assist. Mm-hmm. Because my thinking in bringing it up is I don't want to conflict with an earlier sentence that says the mooring committee shall assist the harbor master with matters pertaining to, but we don't really define how it assists and where authority lies or doesn't, which is why I brought up the point. And so making recommendations is sufficient, from my it is with the rest of the commission.
So, Doug, you're suggesting that we include an additional clause in this last sentence.
Yes, that we would include the language make recommendations to,
right.
Following what Jeff was saying there, which is interesting. The mooring committee shall report regularly to the HMC, make recommendations to the HMC, and otherwise assist.
Right.
And then in the few lines above that, where it talks about matters pertaining to the mooring, anchoring, we'd add and mooring, anchoring, and docking. Take out and before docking, and after docking add and permitting. So it would read, assist the harbor master with matters pertaining to the mooring, anchoring, docking, and permitting of vessels in the HMA. And then the Doug's recommending the other addition in the last sentence.
Right.
Would you put that in? Still suggest putting that in a footnote, or?
No, either way, whatever the group thinks. I thought it might belong as a footnote just in the way the other footnotes read, but it certainly, wherever it is, as long as it's in the document, is fine.
Other commissioners have thoughts related to this paragraph?
I think those are good adds. It's Jeff.
Yeah. Yes. Doug, I agree. Doug, you had another suggestion?
No, that was it.
Okay. Commissioners, any other comments related to the mooring float modifications that Jeff has made? Okay. How about any comments related to other sections of the rules and procedures? I know that some folks had some concerns about Rule 6. Is it Rule 6? No, I'm sorry, Rule 7, littoral rights. Rule 6. I'm sorry, Rule 6. I was right the first time. Are there any concerns about some of the littoral rights questions that we want to address tonight? How about any?
Oh, yes, hi, Kim.
Yep.
Kim, it's Eric.
Yes, Eric, go ahead.
I'm still just trying to catch up on fully understanding that whole that concept, and I just don't feel I have enough knowledge to vote clearly on it. So I would suspect we're not going to vote on this tonight, but I just don't know. I need more time to even comprehend it. To be honest with you.
Okay. Are there any specific issues that you could kind of point to, or ask Jeff for clarification while we're here? I suspect that you're not entirely alone.
I mean, I don't have anything specific or any kind of a constituent concern, but other than I just want to feel comfortable and be clear on, what we have written is going to be language that is not going to, or that would not inspire lawsuits. That's all. I don't really know how other way to word it, but
okay.
I just want to make sure that it's 100% legit.
Perhaps,
and I'm not an expert in that field in any way whatsoever. So I don't know. I would like to. I guess I just want to make sure that we're doing it exactly the way we should be.
Okay, fair enough. Perhaps, Jeff, I know that some of the language, the reasonable access, mooring and or dock, perhaps it might be helpful for everyone if could you give us a short lesson on where that language comes from?
Well, I'll try with the understanding that I'm not an attorney, And,
right. But how,
it's just based on all these years listening to these same arguments by littoral property owners, and I also thought that Attorney Casey's comments at the last meeting were thoughtful as well. But this right, risk of repeating myself from the previous meetings, but what we've tried to do and what the Commission has always tried to do is, and I think pretty much every harbor commission, is balance the rights of the general public with the rights of waterfront property owners for access to navigable water. And so the navigable water of Southport Harbor below the mean high water line is part of the public trust area of the state of Connecticut. So private property owners don't own that underwater land or the water. That's held in trust by the state for the benefit of the general public, not just Fairfield residents or Southport residents, but everyone. And that concept of the public trust is, established in a number of U.S. Supreme Court decisions. And the origin of it, and going back to the King of England and the colonies and so forth is interesting. But the main thing is now that the public has basic rights and interests to use Southport Harbor. Now the other part of managing Southport Harbor with respect to the public's rights and interests is that much of the harbor includes a federal navigation project authorized by acts of Congress, and that's interesting because Mark and I, in dealing with the dredging planning now with the Corps of Engineers, we're doing some research on the history, which is fascinating. Anyway, that's a little bit off the topic, but the federal navigation project has to be managed, including the channel and the anchorage, in accordance with the Corps of Engineers policy of open to all on equal terms. So the public has rights to use the anchorage, and then the other part of the rights and interests have to do with the waterfront property owners for reasonable access. And I think that DEP is in effect the administrator of the public trust for the state of Connecticut, and they take into consideration the public trust issues when they issue permits for docks, for example, or work that would affect wetlands, because there's a public interest associated with that work. So the property owner, as I believe it's fair to say, based on court cases and the state policy, has a right of reasonable access to navigable water. But again, please, I'm not an attorney, because the attorney's going to argue whatever is in the interest of their client. But the reasonable access is dependent on the conditions of the particular property. So that doesn't mean you have a right of access. That doesn't mean the property owner can build a dock of any size that he or she wants. It also doesn't mean that they could even have a dock in some instances, based on the conditions of the property. So when the Harbor Commission prepared the plan back in, and the conditions of Southport Harbor are such that the mooring locations are limited, the resources are very valuable, and it's an historic location, so that there's a lot of pressure for use of the harbor. So when the commission prepared the plan, they included the policy that each property owner would have the right of one dock and or mooring. And then that's been subject to some discussion over time, and we thought that we would try to clarify it now in these rules. And we looked at the properties that have docks and don't have moorings, and the number of properties upstream on the harbor, upstream of the North Anchorage, that historically have had small dock structures that are utilized at not at low tide, but at higher water. But those properties have not. Those property owners, because of the conditions, the shallow water conditions off of their property, they've never had moorings, or traditionally haven't had moorings. So the one dock and or mooring was meant to be, based on the particular conditions of the property. Then more recently, we had the issue of of the property that's in discussion now. That's near Perry Green, having a dock that the previous harbor master felt was sufficient to provide full access to the harbor for the boat that otherwise would have been moored in the harbor. So in that instance, the previous harbor master, with concurrence from Deep, although as we said, it wasn't in any sort of formal challenge or letter from Deep, right. but that in an effort to be fair to people on the waiting list for many years, the idea of this rule was that if a property owner has a dock that provides access to the harbor for the boat that would otherwise would be moored in the harbor, then that property owner would be limited to that dock, and the potential mooring space would be available for the general public, someone from the waiting list. But it's also understood that some property owners who both have a dock and a mooring, there's not that many of them, only a couple, or I think it's a couple, but or three, who have had both a mooring and a substantial dock for a number of years. Those property owners would be grandfathered moving forward, rather than taking a right away that they've always had. But to answer Eric's, I'm not answering. I'm just talking a lot. But to address Eric's question, the intent was to balance the property owner's rights and the public's rights for access to the harbor, and that's what we were trying to do. But in these other cases, that doesn't mean you're always going to satisfy the property owner, because and I know that there's many instances where property owners and attorneys will say we have a right to the property owner has a right to wharf out, and that's established in case law. And again, I'm not an attorney to confirm that, but my understanding, based on what DEP has said, that the littoral right and the riparian right is more properly described as a right of reasonable access, and that depends on the conditions of the property. And DEP is involved in this process. The harbor master is, and the Harbor Management Commission. So that I apologize for talking so long and not being able to see anybody. But
that's a very, very good explanation about how we got here.
How we got here, right?
Kim?
Yes.
It's Jack. Would it make sense? I mean, we're really talking about the words on page 7 and some words in the first, the carryover paragraph on the top of page 8. And there's a lot there, but it's one page worth of words. And would it make sense for us to just have Jeff read the sentences one by one, go through this one page of stuff, which we've never really done together, and let people ask the questions that they have about the words that are written in the rule, so that we're all hearing the same thing? I'm just concerned about taking more weeks to try for people to independently make sense of this. Clearly, nothing is going to guarantee that no attorney will ever sue the town, but we should at least understand the words together that are being proposed in this update of the riparian rights rule. And I'm just concerned that if we don't take the time to just walk through this sentence by sentence and just make sure anybody's got a question can ask it, that we'll be in the same place a week or two from now or a month from now on this. And it's important stuff. So, and it's understandable. It's complicated. Maybe it makes sense to just take the 10 minutes it takes to walk through that and read the words.
I think that's probably a good idea. If we
because the very first word, which we've never changed, is that this whole section is about people getting a mooring before everybody else of the 65 or 7 people that Ed told us are waiting on the waiting list. That's what we're talking about here. So maybe it's worth reminding ourselves that's what this whole section's about.
Right. It's not about whether somebody can have a mooring. It's whether somebody gets a mooring in front of the folks on the waiting list. So where we would begin would be on page 7, little N.
Right. Jeff, do you mind doing that? I mean, I feel like you're best positioned to do that.
Well, again, attaching a lot of, I can talk and see if what I say makes sense. But Kim is right. It was the part of the emphasis, or the beginning of this was the agreement that people who own littoral properties would get priority for being on the waiting, for getting a mooring, and in effect could jump to the to the top of the waiting list. And so let's see, letter N as in Nancy, the bold, and this hasn't changed from this version hasn't changed from the past several drafts. Owners of littoral riparian property, and we're using that term, littoral riparian, sort of interchangeably, but again, the term littoral is most properly used to apply to property that's on tidal, tidal waters, or on lakes, and riparian is the riverine environment, and here sort of a combination of it. So owners of littoral riparian property contiguous to waters determined by the HMC and harbor master to be not suitable for mooring locations due to natural conditions, including but not limited to insufficient water depth and the presence of valuable coastal resources, are not eligible for priority assignment of mooring locations under this rule. I think that's sort of...
Are there, Commissioners, are there any questions about that, about the meaning of that sentence?
And let me just say, just to right on page 8, we go into what are those two different sort of geographic areas within the HMA that are unsuitable. One is the area north of the North Anchorage and south of the Tide Mill Bridge, and the other area is in the out open water, which is part of the harbor management area outside of the inner harbor, not places where we'd want vessels moored because of the natural conditions. So that sentence sort of sets up the two little paragraphs, V and VI on the next page. So it goes into more detail about them on the next page.
Yeah.
So, and this is a change.
Right.
This language in bold that Jeff just read is a change.
The proposed addition that we've been discussing for several months now.
Right.
But then, in response to Eric's, the background of this, is it little Roman numeral 2, two policies down, there are 2 paragraphs down. It is a policy of the Harbor Management Plan that each individual private owner of littoral riparian property will be limited to one dock and or mooring immediately offshore of his or her property, provided that such dock or mooring does not interfere with navigation or cause a significant adverse impact on coastal resources. That's essentially word for word from the Harbor Management Plan. And it's that one dock and or mooring that's been a topic of discussion for a long time. So now we're saying for the purpose, this is clarifying that policy. For the purpose of these rules and procedures, this policy does not mean that such owners are entitled to a dock and, we're adding emphasis there, mooring in all instances. So that's a clarification, because it was discussed before as well. It says one dock and or mooring. We take that to mean in our instance we want one dock and mooring. So we're trying to clarify that it doesn't mean that in every instance. So that when sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I'm thinking back to Mr. Casey's statement at the public hearing that these proposed rules would conflict with the Harbor Management Plan.
He made some good points about when it's necessary if you're implementing rules or establishing rules to implement the Harbor Management Plan, and it's not something covered in the plan. Don't you have to go back and change the plan first? But in this instance, I don't think we're not doing that. We're at least that's not our understanding of thinking of what we're doing. We're trying to clarify a policy that's already in the plan, and we have policies in the plan to balance public rights to moorings, and as well as the property owner's rights of access to the harbor. Now, when we, again, pardon me for talking so much, but when when the commission prepared the harbor management plan in response to all of the conflicts that arose with involved the U.S. Attorney and the Corps of Engineers policy, there was a sentiment by people at DEEP at first, we should eliminate everybody who had a mooring permit up to that time in the harbor and start all over again, with a new waiting list. So we of course we did not agree to do that, but we did agree to. The plan implements that, and we recognize the importance of having a procedure whereby the public has opportunities for access to the federal navigation, the anchorage in Southport Harbor, and thereby a mooring. And so that's another reason why we are trying why we tried to write this rule in a way that if a property owner has a dock that provides access for the boat that would otherwise be moored in the harbor, or provides full access, not just a dinghy that you can row out, but then again it gets back to what's reasonable. So that's what we were trying to get at here. So accordingly it says, when considering an application submitting by a waterfront or littoral property owner for a renewed individual private mooring permit, the harbor master shall consider these certain things: whether the waters offshore of the applicant's property are suitable for a mooring location. For example, the waters upstream of the North Anchorage are not. And 2, whether the applicant owns and maintains a duly approved dock or other water access structures suitable for reasonably accommodating the vessel identified in the application. And then we go on to say it's the harbor master's responsibility to help ensure that the rights and interests of the general public concerning use of the HMA, consistent with the public trust doctrine, are not diminished, including but not limited to access to available mooring locations in the federal anchorage. And then accordingly, in those instances where the harbor master, with assistance from the mooring committee and HMC, determines that an applicant's, just bear with me as I go through here, that an applicant's existing water access structure is suitable for reasonably accommodating, and again, I apologize for reading what everybody obviously can read themselves, for reasonably accommodating the applicant's access to the HMA, that applicant's application for a new or renewed mooring permit may be denied so as to provide opportunity for additional mooring locations for the general public. But we also go on to say that the owner may maintain a place, the property owner, on the waiting list without assertion of littoral riparian rights, and that an individual littoral riparian property owner with a water access structure who has been denied an individual private mooring permit may maintain a place on the waiting list without assertion of littoral riparian rights priority. An individual littoral riparian property owner with a water access structure suitable for accommodating that owner's moored vessel and who has been issued an individual private mooring permit prior to anticipating the end of this year shall not be denied the renewal of that permit under this rule. We're struggling to write this the best way we can, but the basis of trying to do this is what we've just talked about. Now,
so someone who theoretically has been denied, who has asserted littoral rights, but the harbor master, for example, has said, no, your dock is sufficient, that person could put their name on the waiting list, and when their name came up, they could have a dock and a mooring.
I know it's a lot of talk, but that's by me. But everybody I think acknowledges it's a tricky issue, and the commission is doing we're trying to do the best to manage the harbor in the public interest, with recognition of the rights of littoral riparian property owners.
Well, thank you for that tutorial. Commissioners, any as you're wading through this and thinking about this, any questions for Jeff? Any ideas that you'd like to run by him?
Kim?
Yeah, Mark?
Okay, good, thanks. So a question on, Jeff, you indicated that the first sentence is of the section is pretty much out of the plan. Do you happen to know where in the plan I could find that?
Well, if you bear with me and you talk about something else, I have the plan and I'm opening it up now, and I'll find it.
I can filibuster in the meantime. A related question: is this the only place in the rules where we interpret, overtly or specifically interpret the harbor management plan the way the sentence does?
Well, I think all of the policies and all the rules and procedures are in effect based on the policies of the plan for the issuance of mooring permits according to an established procedure and actually in accordance with the rules established by the Harbor Commission. And there's no a specific reference to something mentioned in the plan. No, but it's all based on everything is based on the policies in the plan. A second.
Sure, but so this sentence basically says the harbor management plan means this, and we don't do that anywhere else in the set of rules. So I'm thinking, okay, what is the purpose of the rules? And near as I can see, the rules are supposed to be more specific than the plan, which I get. But I don't see in here that it says that the rules are interpreting, even though that's part of our job. Clearly, part of our commission's job is to interpret the plan. I'm just wondering whether, even though we interpret the plan, obviously we interpret the plan, and yes, we can communicate that and should communicate our interpretations. Is this the place to be stating the interpretation? And would the paragraph, would the entire paragraph still have the same value of the first sentence we're stricken?
While you were talking, Mark, it's on page 6-13. It's paragraph C, as in Christopher. The one dock and or mooring. Well, again, I don't know what it matters.
You brought me to the last meeting.
Excuse me?
I think I looked at this page during the last meeting.
Yeah.
Just a moment. So back to my question, though. I'm sorry. Is it appropriate for the rules to be stating interpretations of the harbor management plan? Is that outside the scope of the rules? Is my first question.
Well, please don't rely on me. My initial reaction, though, would be I don't see that it's improper to do that because the rules and procedure but that's just my initial impression, I guess.
Well, this is Kim. I think that the rules, because they're based on the plan, at some point have to refer back to the plan. I don't see how you could have rules that didn't do that.
And I guess what I was thinking is that by being more precise than we are in the plan about how they should be interpreted by putting them in the rules, we provide more confidence that they're going to be consistently applied the same way instead of on a haphazard basis that's hard to defend over time, where folks in the same fact set are treated differently because there wasn't something more precise in the rules. And that's been the situation historically, that our rules around riparian rights have been not clear, and it's resulted in the kinds of issues that we've talked about now for several years.
Yeah, certainly the intent of this rule is to provide clarity to everyone, to the harbor master, the commissioners, and property owners.
Okay, well, so I got my answer. I asked. It sounds like, as far as we're aware, it's not outside the scope of the rules to state what we think the harbor management plan means. Is that right, Jeff and Jack?
That would be my opinion. That we're the rules and procedures. Let's see. And we refer to the rules and procedures for mooring and anchoring vessels, which is what it was called back then, in the harbor management plan.
Right.
Again, I think that if we were in the situation where the harbor was bigger and we had more space, that we wouldn't be having to thread the needle quite so precisely. There would be room for everybody.
Right.
And
Hi, Kim. This is Sam Cargill.
Hi, Sam.
Yep.
Go ahead.
I just the point of parliamentary order. I've just asked that if you're not speaking, would you put yourself on mute? We're getting a lot of coughing and background noise, and it's a bit disruptive listening to the other commissioners. And I just want to make a point on this part, and it is part of one of the areas that I'm most uncomfortable with, or maybe that's not the right word. Littoral and riparian rights, and the last point you made, Kim, is about how it impacts property owners. I don't believe this is an overreach. I think we're all doing what we can here to provide the clarity that we need to have, and I do think of the rules and the rules as sort of the amendment to the Constitution, being the harbor management plan itself, and it is obviously a document that can be revised and changed over time, just like it is now, to support our online mooring system and the changes that have happened. And of course, it is not a very large harbor where there are, a number of docks, etc. And what is the suitability of a mooring location and where the application would be to, is if it's, what is the right accommodation for water access and things like that. I want to throw that out because I'm reading the document over and over and doing my best here, and I want to be in a position where I'm voting for the rules. I think we're getting close. I'm just a little uncomfortable in this piece here, and I'm not even sure that I'm prepared to say why I'm uncomfortable. It's just, as a resident of Southport, and understanding, property owners and why they buy property on the harbor, and of course doing what we can for the general public and all the constituents of the state. It's more a comment than anything right now on this piece here. And I mean, yeoman's work has been done. I just, as I said in the last call, the law of unintended consequences worries me, and we should be doing our job without fear of litigation. But we should do whatever we can to exhaust every avenue with regard to the proper wording and what it means to property owners on the harbor. That's the kind of that's a comment I wanted to make, and also ask somebody to mute themselves so they're not talking.
Okay. Do you have any particular concerns with any area aside from littoral rights, any other area of the rules, Sam? In part 7. Hold on. I know that there was some redlining that was done by, I think, thoughtful by the yacht club and those representatives or proxies, whether it's Devin or Chris. I still want to get a comfort level of where they are coming from and what their views were on certain areas. Again, I think we've made great progress, and that there is indeed evidence of further collaboration between the Harbor Management Commission and the yacht club. So I need to bring myself up to speed more, and I'd love to be prepared for every board meeting that we go to, but we go to a number of them, and documents and changes are going back and forth. I just want this to be a thoughtful process, and I want to be in a position where I can vote in favor of all the rules, as everyone else. The last thing I want is for there to be a split vote on this. And again, if you would please put yourself on mute, we can hear the comments. Well, I think my response, Sam, is that since you and Eric and Mark and have had some concerns about specifics as well as the general areas of the rules, that I will suggest to the commissioners that we, and by the way, since nobody got a copy of this version of the rules until around noon yesterday, Jeff worked very hard to get it out before the meeting. But I think it would be somewhat irresponsible of us, given how hard we've pushed and how little time we've had between the public hearing and the revisions, and given the level of discomfort among some of the commissioners, I think it would be irresponsible of us to vote on this evening. As much as it pains me to say that, Jack and the committee have worked incredibly hard to bring us along to this point. But what I hear is that while we're still processing the whole 17-page document, that it was probably a good thing for us to catch our breath and to sit back and to consider where we are and look at the document again to be sure that there aren't other things that we need to consider and consult with each other on. I don't know if any other commissioners have different thoughts, but that's kind of what I'm hearing and my thoughts on what the next steps would be.
Oh yes, I can. This is Eric.
Yeah,
I'd agree with what you just said. I would feel more comfortable with more time. But I did have a question for Mr. Stedman.
Good.
If he could help me with something in general regarding the whole document. Is there, Mr. Stedman, can you please identify or define individual private mooring, especially for those that are listening that may not know exactly what that means, and then also define what is commercial mooring, and this is the moorings that are outside of the North Anchorage.
All right. Well, I'll try, but I'm, don't, to the extent that I have this experience.
Only because I think that it needs to be clarified either in this document specifically, or there needs to be a page of definitions.
Yeah.
Because I do think that it needs to be specific, and I wouldn't know the specific. I don't know how to. You know what I mean? I need to know exactly what does it mean by individual private mooring. If I'm a new boater in town, I'd like to read this. I want to know what does that mean, and what does commercial mean? Does it mean fishing? Does it mean I can use my boat for a charter? Does it mean I can run a sunset cruise? I want to know the exact meaning.
It's a good question, and we can be more specific. But and this is the first time in the rules that we've included the reference to individual private moorings, because we're making a distinction between those and what we're calling commercial moorings, and so the need to define both of them. But they come from regulations and policies and rules from the federal government and the DEEP. Now, the DEEP regulates everything you put in water, whether it's a mooring or a dock or you're dredging, and they actually have authority to regulate moorings as well. But they've delegated that authority to the harbor masters in those instances where there's they call them harbor moorings. And it's also related to the Corps of Engineers policies. So a mooring for non-commercial use, for the use of an individual, is the DEP delegates its authority for regulating structures to the harbor master, and that's that definition. Also, the individual private is a definition that the Corps of Engineers uses when they talk about the moorings that can go in a federal anchorage. They have to be permitted for use by individual use, and they can't be used for commercial purposes. Now, there's some moorings that require state and the DEP and Corps of Engineers approvals in some way. And those, when the DEP and the state refer to what these are as commercial moorings and commercial mooring permits, that they include moorings, well, obviously used for commercial purposes, but also moorings that are used by a yacht club and used by the members of the yacht club, and they have access to those moorings by virtue of being a member of the yacht club. So, for example, I'm talking a lot again about this stuff, but the commercial moorings that are issued, permits that are issued to the yacht club, that's the general term that the DEP and the Corps of Engineers use to distinguish moorings that are for the specific purpose of that entity and are not available to the general public. So it doesn't specify that you can, like you run cruises and those sorts of things. It's moorings that are used by that particular entity and can only be used by that entity. Now, the mooring floats that we're calling commercial mooring floats, they're also for the exclusive use of the yacht club. And of course, and required, we in our effort to make sure that the harbor is managed properly according to all these rules, we recognize that those mooring floats used exclusively by the yacht club required more than just the harbor master's permit, because they weren't covered in that, as I mentioned, that general permit for harbor moorings. They needed approval from the state and the federal government. The federal government, in this instance, the Corps, didn't have to issue an individual permit for those mooring floats, because there's a general permit since they're not particularly impactful structures, and the DEP approved them through their certificate of permission. But again, because they're used exclusively by the yacht club and are not available to the general public, and they could not be in the federal anchorage. That was another requirement that the yacht club had to demonstrate that they're not. So this is all, again, a lot of words, but the definitions, and we could make an effort to be more precise, because we refer to commercial mooring permits issued by the DEP and the Corps of Engineers, and individual private mooring permits issued by the harbor master. But we're using terms that are commonly used by DEP and the Corps. And the last thing I'll say, to distinguish between moorings that are open to everybody to apply for, they're not used for any commercial purposes, and moorings that are either used for a specific commercial purpose or used for the exclusive use of the members of a yacht club. I apologize, Eric, for going on about all this stuff, but that's
Eric,
no, that's great. No, what I wanted to know was if I were waiting on the waiting list and I wanted to put a boat on a mooring and I wanted to use that boat to generate revenue, am I allowed to do so?
Well, you couldn't do it in the federal anchorage, and you need to get approval from the DEP too. Or you at least have to, an individual boat like that, you'd at least have to check it with the DEP, but you couldn't use it, you couldn't put it in the federal anchorage, that's for sure. You can't make money off of it.
So what I'm saying is that because it doesn't specify anything really about, what kind of vessel other than a fishing vessel, but like if you wanted to run harbor cruises, if you wanted to do island cruises, if you wanted to do chartering of boats.
I see.
Tell me about that. Is that legal,
yes.
Or what do you have to do on that in the non-North Anchorage?
Then, well, it couldn't be in the federal anchorage, not the North Anchorage, but the federal anchorage, which is separate, of course. And you, in my understanding, you'd have to get a permit from DEP to do that, as well as the harbor master. And to start that, you'd call DEP and say, what is it that I need approval that I need from you to sort of like
if you were on the waiting list and your intention was to do something like that, is that something that we allow?
No, because we're referring to individual private mooring permits, right?
Right. Yes, if someone is going to be on the waiting list, will they need to disclose that they want to use a mooring to do commercial fishing or do commercial cruises or chartering their boat? Would they need to mention that while they're doing that? Because if they sign up, get it, do they tell me about that? Is that something that's possible?
Can I jump in? So on the commercial fishermen in our current application to be on the waiting list, in addition to asking people about whether they're asserting riparian rights, there's also a question about, are you a commercial fisherman? And if they answer yes to that, according to our current rules and in the proposed rules, they are subject to special consideration for issuance of a mooring permit by the harbor master. So we do address the commercial fisherman question in the rules and in the online mooring system.
But it doesn't address any other commercial activity.
Correct.
That's not in our rules anywhere, right?
Correct, Eric.
Okay, I'm just asking. Thank you.
No,
good.
It's
good
a
question.
Well, I won't say any more here.
Good question. So Jeff has, folks, another commitment in about 2 minutes. Are there any other quick questions for him while he's able to stay with us?
And I'm sure people are probably tired of hearing me talk so much, but sorry about that.
I doubt it, Jeff.
No, I don't. But
thank
you for.
Can I go ahead?
Jeff, you are a godsend. Amazing your grasp of the information and also the history lessons we're all receiving since colonial times on littoral and riparian rights. Thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to participate, and the history is fascinating, especially as I mentioned of the navigation project going back to 1829, and but anyway, we'll talk about more about that later. So Kim, if you could just direct me after the meeting, if I sign off now, and then whatever I can do to help afterwards, I'll get to as soon as I can.
Okay, that's great, Jeff. Thank you so much for everything.
Oh no, you don't have to. Thank you for that. I'll talk to everyone later. Good night, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good night. Thanks, Jeff.
Bye.
Thanks,
Jeff.
So, Commissioners, are there any additional thoughts or questions that we want to raise at this point about the rules? Do people just want time to read through them again? Well, hearing no comments, and in view of what I've already suggested, I think we would move on to the nominating committee report from Mr. Foster, Mr. Cargill, and Mr. Sunman.
Kim, am I live? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, good. I was trying to get in a question to Jeff before he left, so I wasn't sure. But look, if I can just speak for the nominating committee,
go ahead.
which consists of myself, Sam, and Eric.
Yep.
We agreed to recommend the following slate for the 2021 officers, and that would be one the same as this year, Kim. That with Kim Taylor as chairman, myself as vice chair, and Harry French as secretary. That concludes my report. What happens now?
Well, I think we need a motion to accept the recommendation of the nominating committee, and a second, and then we can have a discussion, and then we can vote on it.
Maybe I'll interject this. I guess there have been some times when we've had some discussion, and then people who are on the slate leave the room. So I don't know if you want to ask if anybody wants the slate to check out from the meeting. I just thought I'd offer that.
Why don't you offer it again? I'm not sure I heard.
Okay, I'll try to speak up. In at least once or twice in the past, on this occasion, we've asked those that are on the slate, the proposed slate, to leave the conference room while others discuss. So my question is, do you want to offer that opportunity in any way?
If there are commissioners who would like to discuss it, I'm happy to offer that.
Kim, it's Betty. You can also accept nominations from the floor.
So I would also accept nominations from the floor if there are others who wish to, who would like to participate but have not been acknowledged by the nominating committee. Since I'm hearing no responses to the suggestion or the idea that those of us on the slate leave the meeting, nor am I hearing any other additional nominations or people who would be interested in nominating themselves, could I have a motion to accept the slate as presented by the nominating committee?
Can the nominating committee or members of the nominating committee make a motion?
I don't see why not. We're a small group. Between those on the nominating committee and those on the slate, there's kind of nobody. There's very few people left.
I move.
Kim, this is Ted. I will make a motion to accept the recommendation of the nominating committee in terms of the slate.
Thank you, Ted. So we
You're
have
welcome.
a motion to accept the recommendation of the nominating committee. Do we have a second to Ted's motion?
You have a second from Sam Cargill?
Thank you, Sam. We have a second to that motion. Is there any discussion about the motion? Then I think we should take a vote. All those in favor of accepting the slate of Kim Taylor, Mark Foster, and Harry French as the officers of the Commission for the 2021 calendar year, please say aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Are there any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Excellent. So we have our officers.
Just for clarification, they're moving to nominate you, Mark, and Harry as the chairwoman, vice chair, and secretary.
Correct.
For the 2021 year.
For 2021, the current officers have been reelected for 2021.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. And I believe we also have. I jumped the gun. I'm sorry. That was supposed to be meeting dates and times of the commission. Normally, Betty would have a sheet when we would simply pass it around and kind of nod our heads. But in this COVID era, she has prepared a list of the dates and times for our meetings for 2021. Hopefully, in the meeting room of the Independence Hall. But those are the dates, and I believe, Betty, we have to actually vote on these?
Yes.
Okay, so commissioners, I need a motion to adopt the schedule as for 2021 as the third, as presented. It's the third Tuesday of every month at 4:45.
Kim, this is Ted again. I'll make a motion to accept the meeting dates as presented.
Thank you, Ted. Could I have a second? Could I have a second, please?
This is Eric. I'll second.
Thank you, Eric. That's seconded. Any discussion about this? Times, dates? Okay. There being no discussion, can I have a vote? All those in favor of the meeting schedule for 2021 as presented as the third Tuesday of the month at 4:45 p.m., please say aye.
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 Excellent. So that our meeting schedule for 2021 then is set. And is there any additional new business? Okay, not hearing that we have anybody who wants to bring any new business to the floor. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
Kim, before we adjourn, I just wanted to thank you for your hard work this year. You could have easily, in the circumstances of a national and worldwide emergency, just asked the troops to dig in, and stand. But instead, you led the charge bravely and energetically. So thank you.
Well, Mark, thank you for that. That's I felt like I was part of a team that wanted to move forward and wanted to keep charging. So it was I was not even aware of having to make a decision. It just seemed like the right thing to do and the thing that we all wanted to do. So, but thank you for that. So, motion to adjourn.
Here, Kim. Well done.
Thank you.
And congratulations on carrying on as Madam Chairwoman.
Well, thank you, Sam. And I know everybody has someplace else they would like to be shortly. So, could we, if there's no more business to be attended to this evening, could we have a motion to adjourn?
Move we adjourn.
Thank you, Mark. Can I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Well, we are adjourned, and everyone, I hope the holidays are good for all of you. Please stay safe, and we will be meeting on January 19th, 2021.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Betty.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Kim. Thanks, Betty. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all. Merry Christmas,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody.
Have a wonderful holiday.
Stay safe. Enjoy the holidays.
You too.